At the party, Damon's first love was drunk. She was emotional and publicly confronted him about his feelings. Damon simply held my hand tighter, his expression indifferent. I naively believed that he was deeply devoted to me. It wasn't until the day after Yvonne's car accident that Dane and died from drowning. In his phone's notes, there were numerous unsent confessions. Yvonne, life without you is just settling. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in high school. I pushed away the red sugar water Damon had handed me. If she doesn't want it, just throw it away. When Damon returned, it was already past midnight. I suddenly woke up on the couch, instinctively opening my tablet. Still eager. I found so many styles I like recently. Help me pick one, will you? The screen was filled with pictures of wedding dresses and accessories. I had been browsing for days, and my album was nearly full of options. After 7 years of dating, now on the verge of becoming his wife, I was suddenly filled with anxiousness. Though Damon often teased me, he always helped me choose with a look of fond indulgence. This time, I waited for a long time, but there was no response. Damon stood motionless by the entrance, not making a move. The dim, yellowish light of the living room illuminated half of his delicate profile, and he looked somewhat weary. What's wrong? I stood up in surprise. Did the project fail? I vaguely remembered him mentioning a project recently. He was always a perfectionist, determined to accomplish whatever he set his mind to. Now that the company was thriving, he was pushing himself to make it even better. He'd been working on this project for over 2 weeks, even missing my birthday. We stood in silence for a moment, before he finally muttered, "Yeah. Failed." I gently grabbed his hand, comforting him in a soft voice. "It's okay. Just a small project. There will be many more opportunities." Damon seemed lost in thought, offering a bitter smile before brushing my hand away. "You don't understand." With that, he irritably loosened his tie and walked out. His sudden coldness extinguished any joy I had about our upcoming wedding. As I stood frozen, my phone beside me suddenly rang. In the high school class group, several messages popped up. "Did you hear? Yvonne died in a car accident today." My heart trembled at the sudden thought, remembering Damon's odd behavior tonight. Soon, not a low sorry. More replies from classmates followed. "Is that true?" "Of course it's true. The police report came out. Apparently, it was a drunk driving accident, and she was already unconscious before the crash. She'd been dependent on alcohol since coming back. I heard her ex-husband divorced her because of it. After all, she was a campus beauty. How could any man easily let go? Love life wasn't going well, so she probably thought life wasn't worth it anymore." The rest of the messages were left unsaid, everyone silently agreeing not to mention it further. Yvonne was Damon's first love, the beautiful campus goddess from the arts class. And Damon, the handsome, gentle science genius. Everyone thought they were a perfect match. They broke up in a fit of anger during school, but that event inadvertently brought Damon and me together. We met again years later, at a class reunion 6 months ago. After several rounds of drinks, everyone was drunk. In the noisy room, Yvonne's voice suddenly silenced the crowd. "Damon, if I hadn't been so childish back then, would we still be together now?" At that moment, everyone's gaze turned to me. The atmosphere was eerily tense. No one expected Yvonne to publicly confront Damon with such a question in front of me. My throat went dry as I stole a glance at Damon. He remained expressionless, swirling his drink as if he hadn't heard. Classmates tried to defuse the situation. "Yvonne, you've been living abroad for so long. You don't know what's been happening." "Yeah. Damon and Serena have been together for years. And they're planning to get married later this year." The class president, probably fearing things would get out of hand, hurried to support Yvonne. "Yvonne's drunk, and she doesn't know about all this. Don't blame her for not knowing." But Yvonne wouldn't back down. She stood firm. Before long, tears welled up in her red eyes. "Damon, say something." Her voice trembled as she questioned him. "Didn't you promise to protect me for life? Now that I'm back, are you really going to stay indifferent? Are you really going to spend your life with Serena? What does she have that I don't?" My fingertips dug into my palm, causing a sharp pain. I suddenly wanted to stand up, to retort, to criticize her for lacking boundaries. But in the next moment, Damon firmly grasped my hand. Our palms met. Fingers intertwined. We're getting married soon. His gaze toward Yvonne was cold and detached, his attitude resolute. Yvonne, who had always been proud, couldn't bear it. She ran out crying. 3 After that incident, my friends all envied me for finally marrying for love. Damon and I had been childhood sweethearts. And our parents knew each other well. Now that we were finally together, it seemed like a natural outcome. I kept trying to convince myself, over and over again. But in the end, I could only numbly grip my phone, trying to contact Damon while silently praying that nothing would go wrong. Damon's phone didn't go through all night, and even his closest friends didn't know where he was. Clinging to my increasingly slim hope, I kept trying every number in my contact list. As the first light of dawn appeared in the sky, my phone suddenly rang. When I saw that it was Damon calling, my hands almost shook as I answered. But instead of his voice, a stranger's voice came through the speaker. Hello. May I ask what your relationship with Mr. Damon is? I am Miss He. Who are you? The voice paused at my eager response. Then, having fulfilled my obsession, a man's voice, tinged with regret, replied, Sorry. Mr. Damon's body was found by the river this morning. His phone and ID were left on the Cross River Bridge. And that's how I was able to contact you. I'll send the address soon. When would it be convenient for you to come? As a roar rang in my ears, my hearing seemed to shatter. Then a sharp pain shot through my head, and the strings in my mind snapped. The rest of the conversation was lost to me. The police told me that Damon's death was not an accident. In the footage, Damon's eyes were blank, his expression numb, his whole body like a lifeless puppet. When he crossed over the guardrail, there wasn't the slightest hesitation. At this point, I couldn't bear to hear any words of comfort. After arranging everything, I returned home with Damon's belongings, my heart completely numb. It felt as if someone had sliced open my chest with a knife, leaving it hollow and leaking air from every corner. We were supposed to get married next month. My parents had already bought their plane tickets to the city. Not long ago, when we were lying together, Damon whispered to me gently, Ayo. Thank you. You've given up so much for me. And I'll never let you down in this lifetime. At that moment, his pitch-black pupils were unwarvingly resolute. What could be so worth it for him to abandon the happiness within reach? All those tangled thoughts unraveled as my gaze fell on Damon's phone. I found the answer in his notes. Large blocks of monologues, like dense vines, stretched across several years. Each one recorded his innermost thoughts. The latest entry was from last night. Life without you is just getting by. Yvonne, I'll come to be with you. The secret suspicions in my heart were finally struck with a heavy blow. My vision blurred as tears fell, staining the screen. My fingers trembled, and I scrolled further back. Even someone as rational as Damon had clumsily expressed his love. But trapped by societal constraints, he had no choice but to lock away his feelings. Yvonne, that day at the party, you cried and questioned me, while I was too frustrated to respond, leaving you utterly disappointed. Only after a long while did I realize that was probably what it felt like to be heartbroken. Today is Serena's birthday. You called, and I traveled across the world. All these years. I know you've been unreasonable, but I still can't stop worrying about you. You asked me tearfully if I could not marry Serena. I suddenly felt guilty for so many wrong turns I'd taken over the years. Now, trying to turn back, it's so hard. The wedding day is approaching. Yet the more I think about it, the more I want to escape Serena. To escape those responsibilities I never chose. Sometimes, I even imagine that it would be so much better if the one wearing the wedding dress was you. Yvonne, I finally know for sure. I regret it. Outside the window, the rain poured relentlessly, having fulfilled my obsession. And those words hollowed my heart to near transparency. My heartbeat shattered in the deluge of the world. So, this was how Damon had felt. All these years, I had been nothing more than a responsibility he had to carry. After graduation, I moved far from home, accompanying him to this city. giving up my career and dreams to be with him. As he moved from a cramped, damp apartment to a spacious flat in the city center, he whipped himself with guilt and duty, yet still couldn't suppress the surge of love inside him. In the end, he had to use death to prove that Damon had always loved Yvonne. A sharp pain pierced my chest, then numbness swept through my entire body. As the phone hit the floor, the world fell into complete darkness. When I opened my eyes again, the chaotic sounds of people filled my ears. The bright light pierced through my eyes, causing sharp pain. Serena. A blurred tall figure stood in my line of sight, his voice clear and cold. I froze. Through the glaring sunlight, I finally saw his face. A boy in high school uniform handed me a cup of brown sugar water, his features sharp and delicate. "Are you okay?" Around us, students were playing and laughing, a blackboard still showing the conic curve equations from the last math class. Standing before me was Damon from high school. Memory sluggishly began to surge in my mind. I finally remembered that not long ago, Damon had a big fight with Yvonne. To spite her, Damon deliberately brought me brown sugar water and said ambiguous things to me. Yvonne had seen this scene and misunderstood that Damon had already fallen for someone else. Both of them, stubborn as ever, refused to back down, and misunderstood each other's feelings. That's how they missed out on so many years. At the time, I had no idea about this and thought it was just a simple gesture of concern. Later, as they drifted further apart, Damon and I, by default, began our relationship. Because of this love that started with a misunderstanding, I did too many foolish things for him. After graduation, I changed my university plans to stay with him, accompanied him to the city to start a business, supported him through the toughest early days of his career, and quit my own job. In the end, all I got was Damon's "I regret it." Without me, maybe they would have continued to be entangled. But I think, this time, I won't repeat the same mistake. I raised my head, my voice calm. "If she doesn't want it, just throw it away." Damon froze for a moment, his fingers curling slightly. "For you," he said, his eyelashes fluttering, his gaze falling on the cold sweat on my forehead. "It'll help you feel better. I have severe menstrual cramps, and Damon knows this well. Last time, the pain was so bad I fainted in class. At that time, my parents were on a business trip in another province, and couldn't relax. So they called Damon to take me home. But just after he agreed, he disappeared for 2 whole periods. It wasn't until many years later that I heard the reason from Yvonne. Apparently, she had sprained her ankle coming down the stairs, and Damon had stayed in the school clinic with her. When he finally remembered me, it was just a casual remark, "It's fine. Serena can go home on her own." After all these years, I always thought he wasn't good at expressing love or caring for others. He was a sharp-tongued, cold-hearted boy in school, and remained distant even after we started dating. Now, I realize, it was simply because I had never seen him love someone properly. Thinking of this, I lowered my gaze, trying to ignore the dull pain in my abdomen. Damon saw me silent and casually put the brown sugar water on my desk. "All right. Stop being stubborn. Don't I know you? Don't make me send you home later, because you fainted from the pain." His tone was teasing, yet casual. I set my pen down, stood up abruptly, and, in his astonished gaze, dumped the entire cup of brown sugar water into the trash can. The faint smile on Damon's lips slowly faded. We had grown up together, and Damon knew that I was always gentle and slow to reject anything. But it seemed he didn't expect me to be so ruthless. "Serena, what's your point?" His brows furrowed slightly, and his sharp gaze carried a dangerous edge. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a slender, petite figure standing outside the window. I turned my head. Yvonne was clutching the hem of her school uniform, her eyes filled with confusion and reluctance. "Damon," I said, my voice cold, "I just don't want to be involved with people who have nothing to do with me." Damon's gaze quickly flickered out the window before returning to me. "Serena, what exactly are you angry about today?" His eyes searched mine, as if trying to find a crack in my expression. His tone softened suddenly. "That cup of red sugar water. I gave it to you. Is it wrong to care about you?" His gaze was intense, deliberately stressing each word. Yvonne's eyes instantly turned red, and she ran off in tears. I glanced at the now empty window. My tone mocking. Did you achieve your goal? Not going to chase after her? After all, from the very beginning, I had been the tool Damon used to provoke Yvonne. Only through a series of unfortunate events had I ended up falling for him. All on my own. Now, Damon stood motionless. Unshaken. After a moment of silence, his face darkened. Serena. You just said, I have nothing to do with you? 9. I continued packing my materials. My attitude indifferent. But Damon leaned over, pressing down on my movements. His tone stern. Are you upset? Is it because I didn't walk you home that day? Seeing my silence, he continued, annoyed. Serena. Yvonne and I have already broken up. I understood the underlying implication. Since high school, there had always been rumors about us. Because our parents were close. Damon and I naturally spent a lot of time together. Damon had to attend physics competition training, and often missed English class. So, I would take notes for him. In addition, I often brought him breakfast and helped collect his homework. Because of these trivial matters, many people assumed I had secretly been in love with him for years. Too shy to confess because of Yvonne. Some even speculated that once they broke up, I would immediately confess my feelings to Damon. This rumor spread like wildfire. And now it seemed Damon believed it, too. I couldn't help but lift my gaze. So what? Does it have anything to do with me? You don't think I like you, do you? When our eyes met. Slightly mocking. Damon paused for a moment in surprise. The eyes of our classmates were hot with curiosity. After a long silence, his face finally turned completely cold. Serena. You'd better stay this tough. 10. Damon and I had always sat together. To reduce our contact, I asked the teacher to switch my seat. While packing up my books, Damon came back from the playground. A sharp, twisted scar arced his forehead. I knew he had just fought for Yvonne. The other guy was a habitual offender who often made crude jokes. And both Yvonne and I had been victims of him. In my past life, Damon was too proud to admit he was defending Yvonne's honor. He'd mockingly told others, it's nothing to do with Yvonne. I've already lost interest in her. Mainly, my first love was bullied. So what if I punched him? I believed him. And after that event, I gradually started to develop feelings for him. It wasn't until many years later that I discovered the truth from his notes. At this moment, looking at the piles of materials and exam papers on the desk, Damon's gaze grew darker. Serena. Are you serious? I casually tossed a stack of English notes at him without answering. He gripped the notebook in silence for a moment. Then muttered. If you keep causing a scene, without a low sigh, this won't be fun. I'm not obligated to soothe you. One of the boys accompanying Damon couldn't watch it anymore and explained. Serena. Stop being so catty. Damon just fought for you. You didn't see it. But Eugene from the next class, the one who always makes nasty comments to you, got a bloody nose and a black eye. I finally finished sorting everything, lifting my head with a sense of relief. Damon. You know exactly who you fought for. From now on, please don't drag me into your mess with Yvonne. It's disgusting. With that, I ignored their stares and moved everything to the new seat the teacher had assigned me. From now on, I would follow the path I had originally set for myself: stay in the South City, pursue a law degree, and never give up my dreams for anyone. Now, and forever, I would walk the path that belonged to me. 11. Since the day I changed seats, Damon and I had been in a long-standing Cold War. During this time, there were also a few gossipy people who made indirect jabs at me. As I returned to my seat with a cup of water, 2 girls blocked the aisle, gossiping at a moderate volume. Isn't Serena secretly in love with Damon? Now that he's fighting with Yvonne and they broke up, she can finally take advantage. But she's acting all high and mighty. Maybe she's trying to act like Yvonne, throwing tantrums? But Yvonne is the campus beauty. And Serena, she wants. Before I could say anything, my new seatmate Cecilia looked up in anger. Are you too annoying? Gossiping all day long. It's so annoying. If you have time, why not check your report cards? Together. You don't have as many points as Serena's total score, right? If I had your score, I'd have already run into a wall. Cecilia's eyes widened. Her face flushed with anger. The two girls clicked their tongues in displeasure and walked away. Red-faced. Don't mind them. They're just bored. I felt a surge of gratitude. I know. Thank you. In my memory. In my previous life. I didn't have much interaction with this girl. I knew she was straightforward, which had earned her the dislike of many people. But now, she had stood up for me and fought back, perhaps sensing my mood. Cecilia awkwardly added, I've never liked them either. Always chattering. And I think you're really impressive. You don't deserve what they say about you. At the end of her words, she quickly lowered her gaze and resumed writing on the physics paper in her hand. The news of my breakup with Damon slowly spread through the class. For a long time, I not only avoided reaching out to him but also made a deliberate effort to avoid any contact. Gradually, the gossip died down. This time, there were no misunderstandings caused by me. No mistaken turns of fate. Through the whispers of onlookers, Yvonne also learned that Damon had fought for her. After evening self-study, she shyly stood outside the window, her gaze never leaving Damon. The class erupted in teasing. Damon, the school bell is looking for you again. Your girlfriend's smiling at you. Can't you see what that means? Yeah. Go on. Go. Damon froze for a moment, instinctively glancing in my direction. Then, let out a low sigh. He flashed a carefree smile. Alright. I got it. Yvonne's pale cheeks immediately turned a rosy hue as she laughed and scolded the teasing crowd. You're not allowed to say nonsense. Her sweet voice had a playful tone. I kept my expression neutral, still focused on packing my bag. As I walked out of the classroom, I happened to brush past Yvonne. She shot me a proud glance, her eyes full of disdain. Damon and Yvonne had gotten back together. They laughed and joked in the corridor between classes, held hands and hugged in the deserted laboratory, made their relationship public, and spoke of their love openly. Yvonne was delicate and sensitive, yet lively and full of energy. To keep her happy, Damon sometimes skipped class to accompany her. In my past life, Damon fondly reminisced about this innocent love in his notes. Regretting that he had broken up with Yvonne over a petty argument, he recalled her coquette the stone, her lively expressions, and every reign they had shared. We had been in a relationship for many years. Yet Damon's memories of Yvonne were so clear, while he never once mentioned my sacrifices. So when I opened my eyes again, I made up my mind. I would walk the path I had once abandoned for Damon. During this time, I had gradually distanced myself from Damon's life. Even when we crossed paths in the hallway, we remained expressionless, like strangers. At school, I buried myself in studying, spent breaks quizzing Cecilia on knowledge points, and signed up for extracurricular tutoring during the holidays. Math problems, English vocabulary, chemical equations. My life was filled with these subjects. As the college entrance exams drew nearer, my ranking gradually stabilized among the top few. I thought this solitary, studious life would continue until the exams were over. That was until one weekend, when Damon's family came over for lunch. During the meal, our parents, oblivious to the silence between Damon and me, continued talking. But when future plans were brought up, Damon's gaze suddenly darkened. Our Damon has always wanted to go study in the capital, Linda said with a gentle smile. Then turned to me. By the way, didn't Xiaoyu say once that she wanted to go to the same university as Damon in the future? I vaguely remembered thinking that as a child. Back then, our families lived close to each other, and our parents interacted often in business. But I was introverted and withdrawn, never voicing my troubles when classmates bullied me, foolishly keeping everything to myself. Damon could always sense when something was wrong and would take revenge for me. He'd place scary insects in other people's clothes or even get into a fight with them. In the end, no one dared to pick on me anymore. Everyone said I had a guardian angel. From then on, like a shadow, I worked hard to get into the top provincial high school, then applied to the same university as him. Before he had confessed his feelings for me, I had regarded him as the brother I could rely on. It wasn't until my past life, when he sacrificed himself for Yvonne, That I realized our relationship had always stopped at that point. He had long belonged to someone else. And I had been the one who misunderstood. I pulled myself back from my thoughts. I still want to go to South City. I put down my chopsticks, suddenly feeling a sense of relief. I want to study law. And South University's law program is more renowned. Besides, I want to stay in South City in the future. Damon seemed stunned. His sharp brows instantly filled with disbelief. After a long silence, in the suddenly quiet atmosphere, he stood up abruptly, his tone indifferent. I'll go back first. Linda furrowed her brow slightly, casting a quick glance at Damon before awkwardly speaking. I see. It's good that Zhao Yu is so decisive. With that, they quickly shifted the conversation to another topic. In the days that followed, my life was consumed by endless studying. Even during breaks, Cecilia and I took turns fetching water for the two of us. One day, while passing the playground, Yvonne blocked my path. The girls following her looked me up and down. You're Serena? Yvonne stood there in a pale blue dress, looking harmless as she waited. I silently shifted my gaze. After a long moment, Yvonne suddenly turned to her lackey, flashing a bright smile. She's so plain. Damon won't like her. She's just a bookworm who only knows how to study. Her tone was full of smugness. At this age, when most people were dull and buried in their books, Yvonne always stood out, looking beautiful and poised. In the crowd, she looked like a Porcel and all. Her personality lively and playful. Even years later, people still remembered her vividly. But I wasn't interested in getting entangled with her. Sorry. You're thinking too much. I'm not interested in your business. Wish you both a long and happy life. But please don't bother me again. Thank you. With that, I briskly walked towards the teaching building. Yvonne, humiliated for a moment, couldn't find a retort, and could only stomp her foot in anger. What's she pretending for? She used to cling to Damon every day. Now she's pretending. How shameless. I turned to respond, but out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly saw a shadow coming toward me. Next, my arm was abruptly pulled by a force. With a dull thud, I opened my eyes to find Yvonne lying on the ground. She was holding her arm in pain, her knee scraped and bleeding from the fall. Yet at that moment, she stared at Damon beside me. Frozen. I looked up and saw Damon, who had been holding my arm, immediately release it. Sorry. Sorry. A boy running toward us looked guilty. I wasn't careful when playing basketball. Damon finally snapped out of his shock, seeing Damon's indifference. The boy kept apologizing. Damon, I'm really sorry. I didn't see your girlfriend here. Sorry. Sorry. Yvonne bit her lip, her attention fully on Damon. Why did you only protect her just now? She lifted her head and questioned him, her voice tinged with tears. Damon lowered his head in silence, not offering any explanation. Yvonne's eyes immediately reddened. Didn't you say you wouldn't bother with Serena anymore? You know I can't stand her. Yet you're still so close to her. When he still didn't respond, Yvonne pushed Damon away in anger and turned to leave. Damon, I don't want your love anymore. We're breaking up. The atmosphere instantly became tense. And just as the silence grew unbearable, the school bell rang. Damon didn't chase after Yvonne, but suddenly grabbed my arm, his voice hoarse. Serena, are you really going to South City? I calmly brushed off his hand. It's none of your business. His tone was slightly mocking. None of my business? Who's the one who's always wanted to stick to me? Who always said we'd go to the same college together? Who secretly liked me and was willing to do so many things for me? I raised my head. My boy steady. Do you really believe those rumors? He lowered his eyes, his voice softening. During this time, while I've been angry, I've thought things through. I realized I don't actually like Yvonne as much as I thought. I'm tired of her tantrums. Her tantrums and spoiled behavior. Serena, how far do I have to go for you to forgive me? I scoffed lightly, suddenly feeling how absurd it all was. So this is the first love you've been pining for all these years. Willing to sacrifice so much. But now that you've got it, why are you still so indecisive? Damon, your love has always been so lacking. 17 Damon. for the first time, started taking the initiative to make amends with me. He helped me carry books before exams, brought me breakfast before school. Every time the physics exam papers were handed back, he'd already marked the wrong answers and written out the corrections. The music box I had longed for as a child, he bought it for me too. But unfortunately, neither of us was the same as we were when we were younger, especially after everything that happened in my past life. So, despite all of Damon's gestures, I ignored them all. A month before the college entrance exams, he suddenly started frequently suffering from headaches and taking leave. His parents and friends urged me to go see him, but I politely declined, citing my busy academic schedule. And next time I saw him was 2 days before the exams. He cornered me at the back door of the classroom. The school had given an early break, and by the time I finished gathering my materials, the vast campus had emptied out. The classroom was silent enough to hear a pin drop. Damon leaned against the doorframe, the corners of his eyes bloodshot. "Serena, I think I've started remembering some things. Things that don't belong in my memory." I tightened my grip on my bag strap, a faint suspicion growing in my heart, but I pretended to remain calm. "Move aside. I'm busy." He looked down at me, his voice hushed. "Actually, I think I've been having these strange dreams for a while. I dreamed that after graduation, you and I go to High City, living in a small rented apartment. You say you'll stay with me to fulfill my dreams, supporting the plans that no one believes in. You gave up the chance for further studies, moved to an unfamiliar city for me, sacrificed so much for me. You said, because you loved me, it was all worth it." I raised my eyes, my tone mocking. And then, let out a low sigh. He gradually began to find me boring and uninteresting, secretly focusing on Yvonne's life, until he unknowingly fell in love with her tantrums again. And then, he chose to sacrifice himself for her on the eve of our wedding. Damon lowered his gaze, falling into silence. Then, let out a low sigh. He murmured, "Serena, that was just a dream." I lifted my head, my voice icy. "Since it's a dream, then stop wasting my time. I'm only going to South City from now on." 18 on the day of the college entrance exams. I performed steadily. If all goes as expected, it should be enough for me to be admitted to Nanda University's law program. Cecilia walked out of another exam room. That last genetics question was so tricky. She frowned, muttering as she let out a long sigh. "But at least it's finally over." Then we started talking about hair colors, new movies, and which cities we were planning to go to, and what majors we wanted to pursue. We chatted aimlessly as we walked, and when we parted ways, Cecilia waved at me. "Serena, I've thought about it, and I still want to apply for an and journalism program. If we can, let's stay friends forever." The sunlight was blinding and dazzling, but in the blurred vision, her eyes shone, clear and bright. 19 on the day of submitting applications, I found out that Damon hadn't taken the exams. He had suffered from prolonged headaches, sometimes even fainting unexpectedly. His uncle and aunt had taken him to many hospitals, but no cause could be found. In the end, they were helpless and attributed it to psychological issues, temporarily giving up on the exams. In the meantime, Yvonne had visited him a few times but was turned away. In a fit of anger, she agreed to her parents' suggestion of studying abroad. Meanwhile, I was successfully admitted to Nanda University's law program. On the first day of school, Cecilia was standing at the gate of Nanda University, smiling serenely. Looking back at my high school years, I couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions. But Cecilia seemed confused as to why Damon and I had no contact at all anymore. I smiled but didn't mention the 200+ messages he had sent me. After graduation, I changed my phone number and updated all my social media accounts. After all, to leave the past behind, some changes were necessary. But this time, I had no regrets. In my past life, after I died, my soul was trapped beside my husband, witnessing our children crying their hearts out with him. They weren't crying because of my passing. They cried because I finally gave way to my husband's first love. In the eyes of our children, the two lovers had finally become a couple. Opening my eyes again, I would never give that ungrateful wolf a chance to be born. The husband from my past life. The fiancé in this life, I could only let him become a thing of the past. This opportunity to go abroad is rare. Are you sure you won't reconsider? I've made up my mind. But I need you to help me buy the plane ticket. Well, you're about to get married after all. We've all seen how much you've cared for President Julian over the years. It's only natural to feel reluctant. Especially since this trip's return date is uncertain. Huh? What? You changed your mind? You're really willing to leave your fiancé behind? My childhood friend and best eye Elena looked at me in disbelief. Yes, I had changed my mind. No one knew I had been reborn. This time, I refused to be trapped by anyone. Though I once stood on the threshold of my dreams, I ended up entangled with Julian for a lifetime. In my previous life, everyone said that if it weren't for my father sacrificing his life to save the elder of the Julian family wouldn't have engaged me. They said I had wasted his life. I patted Lena's head and smiled. An engagement is just a game between elders. A forced melon isn't sweet. I have my own dreams. Lena stopped joking and seriously grabbed my hand. Don't worry. I'll make sure you're on a plane to the UK by the end of the month. In my past life, I refused the opportunity recommended by my mentor and didn't go abroad to study and drive. X's laboratory. I remember the disappointment in my mentor's eyes. Serena, you're the most talented student I've seen in electronic science and technology. Dr. X's lab could teach you much more. I'm afraid you'll regret missing this chance. That was the longest speech I'd ever heard from him in for years. But my heart was full of Julian. Facing his earnest advice, I resolutely said, Teacher, I won't regret it. Julian was my senior by 2 grades in high school, tall, handsome, modest, a campus celebrity. I was just an undeveloped sprout with no hope of crossing paths with him. But my father's sacrifice brought me a fortune others envied. Our engagement caused a huge stir at school. After losing my only parent and facing bullying from boys and girls who felt I was desecrating their idol, my world turned dark. Julian was like a hero riding a rainbow cloud, shielding me under his wings. From then on, my world was only him. After university, under the Julian family elders' arrangements, we married and were blessed with twins. I thought I was the happiest woman alive. But Julian began to drift away. That's when I discovered the unclear relationship between Ophelia, who called herself his sister, and Julian. Their occasional glances and jealous tacit understanding slowly corroded my heart, though they never crossed physical boundaries. It was like swallowing bitter herbs. My children, as I wished, became outstanding, my daughter a renowned surgeon, my son taking over the family business. Though everything seemed to improve, they grew distant from me with age. Every birthday, they made excuses about work and wouldn't even send a blessing. But on Ophelia's social media, I saw videos of 4 people laughing happily together. They seemed like a truly happy family. I couldn't help but confront them, only to receive my son's cold reply. We've made names for ourselves as you wanted trophies to show off. Won't you even give us the last bit of freedom? My daughter said, Why do I have a mother like you? Why isn't Ophelia my mother? Please let us and Dad go. Divorce and give Dad back to Ophelia. I was no longer young. My life revolved around my children. And now everything was denied. How could I accept it? Looking in the mirror at my graying hair, I suddenly remembered my term and words from my 20s I wouldn't regret. Indeed, people don't learn from others' teaching, but from their own suffering. I had spent my life proving the answer to myself. I regretted it. But I was powerless to change things. Years of repression led to severe depression. Physical symptoms so bad I couldn't move. I was sent to a top nursing home, living a life without dignity. Everyone said my children were filial and Julian was devoted. But until I died, I never saw them again. My soul drifted above, watching them arrange my funeral, everyone seeming relieved. A month after my death, Julian married Ophelia with the twins' support. My traces were erased completely, leaving only the saying, she should have stepped aside long ago. My past life was a joke. So if heaven gives me another chance, I will cherish it. Cancel the engagement with Julian. Go to drive X's lab. And walk the path I was meant to take. After saying goodbye to Lena and confirming the overseas plans with my mentor, I returned to the home Julian and I shared. It was a duplex in a mid to high-end neighborhood, not far from my university and Julian's company, over 600 square meters. Bought by Julian's grandfather to make commuting easier for us. Because Julian disliked strangers. We had known Annie or cleaning help. I did all the daily cleaning and maintenance myself. Sometimes after class or part-time work, I had to take leave to come back and cook for Julian. His stomach was always sensitive. If I didn't cook, he wouldn't even bother ordering takeout. As I simmered the porridge, I realized cooking for Julian had become muscle memory. Looking around the kitchen, I quickly sliced a century egg and ginger to add in. Through the rising steam, I saw the handcrafted calendar hanging on the wall, looking like a beloved treasure. A cute little bear's head marked the large date 19. Next to a line I'd highlighted, "Julian comes home for dinner today." I briskly tore off the page, rolled it up, and threw it accurately into the trash can. I couldn't help but jump a little on the spot. In 11 days, I would be free. I could then run toward a broader world. I casually stir-fried some greens and ate them with century egg congee. At the door came the sounds of a man and woman laughing, and the keypad beeping as someone entered the password. Ophelia was walking ahead carrying a small bag, and even her hair seemed to be telling of her happy mood. Julian followed closely behind with 2 shopping bags in hand, smiling as if he were the knight guarding the princess. I stared absnast and leered at the two of them. So at this time, Ophelia already knew the house password. Why hadn't my younger self noticed such an intrusion? Big sister Serena, do you think the clothes and tie I bought for Julian look good? Ophelia intimately helped Julian straight on a clearly expensive tie. I knew the brand. It took me for years of part-time jobs in college just to earn half the price. Sister, are you silent because you're jealous? I also brought you lots of clothes, mostly only worn once or twice. Hurry up and try them on. I smiled lightly as I looked at Ophelia eagerly showing me one ill-fitting outfit after another. Seeing I didn't respond, Ophelia stopped moving and said plaintively, "Sorry, big sister Serena. I just wanted to share these pretty clothes with you. Are you rejecting them because I wore them? It's Julian's fault. When we were shopping, I clearly said I wanted to buy you new clothes. But you wouldn't let me." Ophelia, "Serena won't want the new clothes you buy. She's used to being frugal," Julian said, subconsciously loosening his tie as he turned to me. "Serena, Ophelia means no harm. The clothes she brought you are last season's light luxury brands. Nothing beneath you fare much better than the stuff you buy on Taobao." I laughed out loud and turned to my bedroom. I knew big sister wouldn't be angry. I handed the big bag of clothes I had sorted out earlier to the following Ophelia. Seeing what was inside, the innocence on her face disappeared. "What do you mean? Giving me this pile of junk? These are your clothes, here they are back. What? You finally realize you're not even worthy of wearing my second-hand clothes? Serena, in consideration of these clothes that helped you shine at banquets, you should cherish them well." Looking at Ophelia's suddenly harsh and spiteful face, I recalled how every time Julian took me to banquets, Ophelia would insist on doing my makeup and hair. Wearing her outdated light luxury clothes on me always felt hollow, causing me much ridicule. Later even Julian's mother, who was initially friendly, seemed to distance herself because she thought I brought shame to the Julian family. Whenever I mentioned this to Julian, he always acted confused and dismissed my feelings as me being inexperienced. I gradually stopped wanting to attend banquets with him, and naturally, his date became Ophelia. I ignored Ophelia's contemptuous words and returned to the table to continue drinking my congee. I overheard her voice choke as she complained to Julian. "Julian, maybe I should just leave. Serena hates me now. Maybe I really wasn't thoughtful enough. I meant no harm. I know that very well." After Julian sent her out the door, I kept my head down drinking my congee. His tone sounded displeased. "Serena, you're a little ungrateful." I didn't lift my head, perhaps finding it boring. He ate his noodles alone and looked at the plate of mostly vegetable broth I had left. Confused, he said, "The house is so poor there's only the bottom of a pot left? Didn't I transfer you 200 yuan at the start of the month? Why is there ginger and century egg in your congee? You know I don't like that." I finished the last spoonful, leaving only one sentence. People who don't cook have no right to be picky. The next day, Julian left the house before me without even eating breakfast. He boiled a bowl of noodles, and added to fried eggs. I hummed a little tune and started packing my bags. Not much stuff, just enough to fill one suitcase and a travel bag. Most were books. Clothes and daily necessities made up only about 1/3. Julian was right about one thing: I've always been frugal. Having 2 sets of clothes per season to change was already plenty. As for the slightly worn, but still expensive pink teddy bear on the bed, that was the only gift Julian ever gave me. I used to treasure it, kissing it every day, snuggling it as I fell asleep. Now it seemed it could only stay behind. I couldn't bring it with me. Nor did I want to. Just like that summer I could never return to. And that boy who once helped chase away the darkness looming over me. Forever a thing of the past. I carefully placed the bank card Julian gave me for living expenses into the teddy bear's pocket. Over the years, except for daily meals for Julian and paying the house fees and other expenses, I never spent a penny from that card. It should have accumulated a decent amount by now, except for the 2 years of high school. Since college, my tuition and living expenses have all come from my bonuses and part-time jobs. I didn't want to spend too much of the Julian family's money. Somehow, I thought this pride of mine might help narrow the gap between Julian and me. Looking back, it seemed laughable. My phone buzzed with a new notification. I saw the latest deposit payment for a menial job assisting my advisor's project. Seeing my balance, I breathed a sigh of relief. Though poor, there was still a path ahead. I looked at the teddy bear in the living room, with the big number 20 stuck on its head, and couldn't help but smile broadly. Like yesterday, I tore it off in one go, not caring about the jagged scraps left on the calendar. Those calendar scraps I once treasured no longer belonged to the file box deep in my wardrobe. They ended up in the trash. Perhaps my brain was more active during the day, so I slept lightly at night, half asleep, half awake, having fulfilled Leo. I always felt a pair of eyes watching me. I couldn't help but open my eyes. Through the dim yellow nightlight, I saw Julian sitting quietly beside my bed. He held his stomach with one hand, his face pale, and there was a faint smell of alcohol on him. I frowned, about to speak, but Julian beat me to it. I didn't mean to come into your room at night. I was entertaining clients, and Ophelia blocked a lot of the alcohol for me. I got a bit drunk and didn't trust her to go home alone, so I brought her back. You want me to help you take care of her? No. I've already wiped her face and helped her to bed. She's sleeping in my room, so I thought maybe I could rough it with you for one night. After saying this, he casually lay down beside me, completely unaware that the room felt even emptier now, with my suitcase placed on the other side of the bed. I listened to his breathing, and silence fell between us. He seemed about to reach out to hold me, but I pushed him away and couldn't help but sit up. My eyes immediately caught the red lipstick mark on his collar. Noticing my gaze, his eyes darted as he explained. I was drunk, it accidentally rubbed off. I pursed my lips. It's fine. You and Ophelia have always had no boundaries. I'm used to it. Julian raised his voice. Don't talk nonsense. Ophelia is Blake's sister. Like my own little sister. What tantrum are you throwing? Are you upset because I haven't proposed yet? I told you. We have a marriage contract. When the time is right, the elders will arrange everything. There's no need for that kind of formal ceremony. I remained silent. His hand, clutching his stomach, tightened. I sighed. Julian has always suffered from stomach problems. I have tried cooking all kinds of nourishing meals for him. At first, he could hardly look at the food without feeling unwell. But over time, he started to sit at the table on his own at mealtime. These years, he's gotten much better. He rarely socializes. After all, with the status of the Julian family, hardly anyone dares to push him to drink. So when he said Ophelia drank on his behalf, I didn't believe it from the start. It was probably just a veiled way of exchanging feelings, regret over what never was, drowning sorrow in alcohol. I was too tired to expose them. But thinking of Julian's grandfather, who has always been good to me, and the Julian family's substantial financial support, I got up to warm the soup. This was my way of repaying the favor. Julian, you Cesara. Where are you? Woo woo, woo. Ophelia is so scared. Hearing the voice, worry appeared on Julian's face. I'm going to check. Drunk people are prone to danger. I watched the door close behind him before I moved to shut it again and lock it. I lay on the bed, put in earplugs, and closed my eyes. I thought I would be unable to sleep, but I fell asleep quickly. The next morning, I found that Ophelia had already left. Julian had his assistant send breakfast from a 5-star hotel. I could tell he seemed distracted but said nothing to break the silence. Your favorite crab roe soup dumplings. Julian placed a steaming dumpling onto my plate. I didn't refuse and sipped the soup carefully. Let's get married next month. I've already told the family. And they want me to bring you home today to discuss the details. See? He's not completely passive. What he said before about leaving everything to the parents was just a pretense. But I don't know what happened between him and Ophelia after I went to sleep last night. It made him suddenly push the wedding forward. I didn't want to complicate things further and resisted the urge to refuse outright. My mind racing. Isn't your current project almost finished? Maybe don't get distracted for now. I'll go back to the old family home and discuss with Grandpa Julian and the others. Julian frowned. My project is near the end. If I managed it from start to finish, why would I need so many employees? Marriage is important too. You don't want me to be a figurehead, right? My fingers clenched the spoon until they turned white. Julian's phone rang. A melodious ringtone. Julian, went on a lull. Sorry. Something's wrong. My sister just had a huge fight with Mom and Dad and ran away. I recognized the voice as Blake, Ophelia's brother. Don't worry. I'll go find her. Julian anxiously stood up, walked to the hallway, grabbed his coat, and prepared to leave. Suddenly remembering me, he held the phone apologetically and said, "Something happened with Ophelia. Please tell my parents we'll come later." I quickly interrupted. "I'll go back myself. You don't need to worry." He didn't argue and nodded before leaving. As expected, only things involving Ophelia could make usually calm Julian lose his composure. Well, that's fine now. I don't have to make any more excuses. Let me be the one to explain everything clearly to the Julian family. I'm sure they won't object. Before leaving, I tore the little bare-headed calendar marked on the 21st into pieces. I took a car to the Julian family's old mansion. Grandpa Julian and Julian's mother had set aside time to discuss the wedding with us. Seeing I came alone, Grandpa Julian complained angrily about Julian to me. This time, I didn't defend him, only explaining my reason for coming. When I asked to break off the engagement, Grandpa Julian was stunned. "Girl, has someone been whispering nonsense in your ear? You're the granddaughter-in-law the Julian family recognizes. That won't change." Julian's mother smoked silently nearby. She looked me over in surprise and couldn't help but say, "Serena, Julian may be a little awkward in matters of love, but I'm not bragging when I say he's top-notch in ability, character, family background, and appearance. If you miss him, it'll be hard to find someone with those conditions again." I looked down in silence, bitterly smiling inside. Yeah. In everyone's eyes, Julian and I have always been worlds apart. If I break off the engagement, others will think I've lost my mind and don't know what's good for me. I'm lucky that the Julian family's parents aren't too harsh. Otherwise, the moment I spoke, they'd have branded me as clueless and happily sent me away like a plague bearer. The usually stern patriarch, Grandpa Julian's voice sounded unusually aged. "How can I face Serena after this? My father, who raised me alone, died saving him, and his only regret was leaving me behind." Grandpa Julian arranged my engagement to Julian to reassure my father. His last breath left him finally at peace, his eyes closing forever. That image must have struck everyone present deeply. My father's sacrifice brought benefits to the Julian family, and they repaid me in kind. Without them, my fatherless childhood would probably have been much worse. But this must be the end. Marriage should never be used as a form of repayment. Last lifetime, forcing the engagement made me a joke. The twins I gave birth to with all my heart and soul no longer belonged to me. After death, I was the extra person others needed to make room for in their love stories. Even if they don't understand why I insist on breaking the engagement. Even if they see me as ungrateful. I will never look back. Life belongs to me. I can't afford to stumble twice in the same place. Grandpa Julian still didn't give in. You're more stubborn than your father. He said I could never be his grandson's wife. Only his granddaughter. And he spoke to me like an ordinary old grandpa. Kindly and chattering away. Losing the identity of Julian family's granddaughter-in-law. Julian's mother seemed to have changed from a high-class noblewoman to a gentle, neighborly aunt. Julian's mother had been well-educated since childhood. A true lady of the elite. Whenever she wanted, she could make you feel as if bathed in the spring breeze. At the strong insistence of Julian's grandfather and Julian's mother, I stayed at the Julian family's old mansion for a week. With nothing much to do, I either played chess back and forth with Julian's grandfather or went shopping and dining with Julian's mother. I even gained a few pounds. Before I left, Julian's mother spoke to me from the heart. She said she actually didn't dislike me before. It was just that the world of wealthy families was too deep and complicated. She knew very well that Ophelia had set traps for me, and that I had fallen into them, so I was not cut out to be a proper wealthy family daughter-in-law. Then she said, if I didn't mind, I could consider her younger son. I looked at the boy who was going through his voice-changing period, speechless as he stared at his mother. Without a word, I turned and left. I was eager to go home and tear up the calendar pages I hadn't torn off that week. I had become obsessed with this strange ritual. Only 4 days left. 4 days until I could completely break free from everything in my past life. 4 days. Just 4 more days. When I got home, I found the door ajar. Strange voices came from inside. This wedding dress was made especially for Mrs. Julian. I thought I saw a fairy. Julian was totally stunned. Oh no, no. Manager's son. I'm not Mrs. Julian. I'm just trying on the dress for Serena. Manager's son, dressed in professional attire, seemed a little embarrassed and quickly corrected herself. Julian really is romantic. Is this a surprise for Mrs. Julian? Yeah. Thanks to Serena. I got to wear such a beautiful dress. She lowered her eyes somewhat sadly. Julian looked a little heartbroken and gently patted Ophelia's shoulder. Unsure what to say, Ophelia then casually said, Serena will definitely like this wedding dress. She and I have about the same size. But this one's a little tight. Manager's son. You should make it 1 size bigger. I remembered the ill-fitting clothes she had made me wear at the banquet. Ophelia clearly wanted me to lose face at the wedding. For this strapless wedding dress, making it 2 sizes bigger would be a total disaster. Luckily, hadn't fulfilled Leo's sorry. Whether it was the wedding or the dress, none of it concerned me anymore. I cleared my throat. And only then did everyone notice I was there. I nodded as a greeting and then headed straight to my bedroom. Julian followed me, and the atmosphere behind us felt a little awkward. Serena. Ophelia had a fight with the family. Blake asked me to look after her for a few days to help her clear her head. The doctor said she has depressive tendencies and needs a room with more sunlight. I pushed away his hand blocking me and opened the door. The originally empty room was filled with Ophelia's things in every corner. As if she hadn't just stayed here for a week, but had always been the owner. Serena said she doesn't mind sharing the room with you. So I didn't move your stuff. After searching for a while, I found that my carefully packed suitcase and travel bag had been opened, with the outer layer of things scattered and casually placed under the bed. I tidied everything up quickly. I looked at the pink teddy bear I had treasured for years, lying face down in the corner under the bed, already covered with a thin layer of dust. I didn't want to care, but Julian reached in and took it out. Serena, didn't I give you this bear? Why did you throw it under the bed? I looked at the bank card still safely tucked in the bear's pocket and breathed a sigh of relief. I straightened my back and scoffed. Take it away. Julian seemed puzzled. What do I want with such an old toy? Then he casually tossed it aside. Seeing me stare at him silently, he asked, have you set the wedding date yet? He didn't know we had already called off the engagement. I stopped Julian's grandfather from calling and yelling and asked Julian's mother to give me some time to talk things through with Julian. Not yet. They want to consult him. Asked her to pick a good date. Julian looked knowingly at me. The older generation is always superstitious. That's right. I muttered. It's late. No time to cook. I'll arrange food delivery. Watching him leave, I was stunned. I couldn't sleep in the same room as Ophelia. Even though this had been my home for years, I had no right to decide who it belonged to. Surely Ophelia wouldn't want to share a bed with me either. Just as I was about to move my luggage to the guest room, Ophelia entered wearing the wedding dress. She faced the light, and her usual bright innocence softened into gentleness. She crossed her arms. Serena, you really are lucky. What have you done to deserve marrying Julian? Didn't your father do it on purpose? Staged a rescue just so you could marry into the wealthy family and ride the wave up? Too bad. Some things just aren't meant to be forced. He can't handle this kind of wealth. And you? Can you calmly eat the steamed buns made from your father's blood? Her earlier gentleness had been an illusion. Wearing the most beautiful wedding dress, she spoke the most poisonous words. My blood surged with anger, and I slapped her. Unwilling to back down, Ophelia used her sharp manicured nails to scratch my face. With her sharp scream, "Ah ha 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 ha! Sorry, Serena. I didn't mean to take over your room or try on your wedding dress. Why did you hit me?" I was shaking with rage. Before I could land the second slap, Ophelia tumbled backward and fell to the ground. The bedroom door was slammed open with great force. Serena, your jealous face is really ugly. Julian looked at me with utter disappointment, pushed me out of the bedroom, then crouched down to gently comfort Ophelia. The departing staff glanced at me strangely. A timid young girl stepped forward. "Mrs. Julian, what? Your neck." I took the tissue she handed me and gently dabbed the sore spot. I avoided serious injury but was slightly hurt. "Do you want to go to the hospital to have it checked?" "No need. It's not serious enough to get a rabies shot." The girl laughed at my joke and relaxed a bit. Our manager sensed things were going south and took the others away, leaving me here to pick up that wedding dress. "Mrs. Julian. Actually, Julian treats you quite well. This dress was ordered from our store several months ago. He personally gave the measurements, so I'm sure it'll fit you perfectly. But it seems your best friend doesn't quite understand your figure. You're much slimmer than her. I suggest you try it on yourself." I caught the hint in her words and smiled lightly. Superficial acquaintance. Deep talk. I didn't want to explain any further. This was the last bit of dignity I'd leak to Julian in front of others. My phone showed an unknown number. I ignored it twice before answering. On the line came a voice not unfamiliar, questioning sharply. "Serena." To Ophelia, "Julian is like a brother. Just like to me. You really don't need to treat her as a rival. I know your background makes you feel inferior in front of Julian, but that's no reason to betray the friendship Ophelia has given you. You invited Ophelia to stay at your place. She helped you try on clothes. But you treated her like dirt. And worst of all, you hit her." Faced with this barrage of accusations, I let out a light laugh. Maybe my laugh irritated him, because all he said was, "Hopeless." I wanted to reply with 4 words too: self-deception. As Julian's friend and Ophelia's brother, did he really know nothing? Because of my lack of background, a few complaints from his sister made me the scapegoat. I tossed and turned in the guest room, unable to sleep. I guess I was a little restless in a strange bed. I got up to get some water in the living room, overhearing Julian and Ophelia chatting in what used to be my bedroom. A door was open. Just like their usual relationship, pure and never crossing boundaries, there was nothing for anyone to say. They talked about university, work, Blake, and who fulfilled my absai, and all the people and experiences they shared, occasionally, having fulfilled my absai. Laughter drifted out. That tacit understanding and synchronized resonance, things I once obsessively resented in my previous life, now felt like nothing at all. I sat quietly at the dining chair sipping warm water when I felt the atmosphere darken. Julian sat down opposite me. "Serena, you really were too impulsive today. Ophelia has a tendency toward depression. And you scared her. You should apologize to her." I tilted my head and pointed to the marks on my neck. "So, am I scratched by a dog?" Julian's eyes flickered. His voice lowered. "Why have you become so harsh?" I looked at him expressionlessly. She said my engagement to you was a death pact arranged by my father. Julian's breath caught. He knew that my father's death was an untouchable wound for me. His voice softened with apology. I apologize on Ophelia's behalf. She had a huge fight with her parents a few days ago and had a depressive episode. Her emotions are unstable. But she didn't mean it. I sneered coldly. So you told her parents and brother that I, Serena, invited her to our home? In their eyes, am I just a lowly person who picks up her scraps? Someone who should be at her beck and call when she needs me. Offering my time, my room, and even my fiancé. Huh? Serena, what nonsense are you talking about? But his evasive eyes betrayed the inner truth he dared not face. When I pulled everything apart, Julian, do you feel ashamed? Last night ended unhappily. I thought Julian would hold back. Wouldn't a person feel ashamed? But when Ophelia woke up crying in the middle of the night, Julian still stayed on the floor in her room, keeping her company all night. Indeed, truly caring for someone means sometimes putting aside your pride. The next morning, Ophelia and Julian were laughing and chatting at the dining table. Seeing me, Julian acted as if nothing had happened. He pulled out the chair I usually sat in for me. Ophelia's red marks had disappeared long ago, but she looked at me arrogantly, as if she bore no grudge. She pointed at the porridge on the table. This is congee Julian specially made for me as a patient. Serena, sister. You can't have any. I ignored them both until I reached the door. Then gave Ophelia a meaningfully ambiguous look. Calling someone 2 years older than you sister. You really are something else. With a bang, the door shut. The chaos behind it was none of my business. I went to the school to handle related procedures. Found a hotel and paid for 3 days. Took the room card. Everything went smoothly. So smoothly that I regretted not taking my luggage before leaving. I resigned myself to going home. Julian went to the company. Ophelia, still sick, was given leave by Julian, her leader and brother. I tidied all my things, including the pajamas I wore last night, only to find my laptop missing from my bag. My heart skipped a beat. It contained my graduation project. Although I had sent it to my advisor, losing it would still be a big problem. I hurried to the study and found Ophelia using my laptop to binge-watch shows. I frowned and stepped forward, shutting the screen and checking if my important files were still intact. Thankfully, I had set a separate password. Serena, what are you doing? You're interrupting my show, and I'm at a good part. My face darkened. Ophelia, don't you know what sense of boundaries means? A laptop contains private things. Didn't you know? Who told you it was okay to rummage through my luggage? She looked me up and down and didn't hold back. Serena, you're really petty. I saw your packed luggage. So, you finally realized Julian isn't someone you can dream of? Decided to quit? You should have known. Only I'm worthy to stand by Julian's side. What do you have? My family can help Julian's family reach greater heights. I'm a respectable heiress. And you? Huh. As she spoke, she opened another computer nearby. I watched in disbelief as she typed in the password. I wasn't shocked by her provocation after all. When Julian's not around, Ophelia ever hides her possessiveness of him. In front of me, she treats him like property. She once said I was just a burden Julian had to accept. Even if it was a family compromise. It was forced. And only she, Ophelia, could truly enter his heart. What shocked me was that Julian actually gave Ophelia the computer password. Even though he once said the files were very important and involved many corporate projects. I never minded that before. After all, I have my own computer. Although I never set a password to keep him out, that was simply my own choice. I'm not sure if my surprise pleased her. But Ophelia smugly said, "You don't mean to say you don't know Julian's computer password, do you?" Her act of surprise was way too exaggerated, and she even tried to lean close to whisper in my ear. I took a few steps back. TCH. How boring. Fine. I'll be generous and tell you the password is my birthday. All those once grandiose excuses were really just to cover up the origin of the password. I should have realized this long ago. In terms of appearance, family background, and everything else, Julian and Ophelia were truly a perfect match. When we were freshmen, Everyone saw Julian confidently speaking on the big lecture stage, and the hostess Ophelia walking by. And everyone thought they were a golden couple. Every time the two appeared together or passed each other, people would capture photos and post them on forums. As for me, the so-called proper fiancée, I always tried every way to hide my identity. Wearing faded and washed-out clothes. Standing in front of them, I looked more like a maid who showed up in the wrong place. Facing Ophelia, I always felt like I was the third party who had interfered in someone else's relationship. I often felt insecure and apologetic. Maybe if it weren't for the engagement, they could have been together openly and proudly. But whenever I brought this up with Julian, he would always comfort me, assuring me that my position as his fiancée was unshakable and telling me to think of Ophelia only as a friend to younger sister, even if I vaguely understood Ophelia's feelings. I seemed to be in denial. Perhaps, to Julian, I was still the only one. After all, he wasn't the type to put love into words easily. But in my previous life, after I died and became a spirit, at their wedding though they were no longer young, he still said I love you over and over. As if he had an overflowing love that couldn't be expressed. It turned out there were signs all along. Ophelia owing the family computer password, coming and going freely, and the password being her birthday. I gathered all my luggage, tore off the last 3 pages of the calendar for this month, and casually tossed them aside. I should have let it go completely long ago. I stayed one night at the hotel. Lena called me and told me to pick up my plane ticket. She said Julian had called her to ask what had happened. Only then did I realize I had more than 10 missed calls on my phone. I hesitated, wondering if I should call back and explain, but didn't know how to start. Honestly, Händelsefeld and Sacher. I rarely argued with him. Even when I was upset and venting one way, I would eventually convince myself after he talked to me. I decided to write everything between us in an email. I spent 2 hours editing and trimming it down, explaining my feelings and final decision. It was my way of explaining my 2 lives. The phone rang. Seeing a familiar number, I answered instinctively. Serena. Open. Me? I opened the hotel room door. Julian, always gentle and refined, grabbed my shoulder. Serena, are you a child? Copying Ophelia and running away from home? Do you know how worried I was? Come back with me. The usually spoilt young master barged in to help me pack. My email page was still open. But without looking, he shut down my computer. I breathed a sigh of relief and stopped him. I already paid the room fee. Lena said she'll come find me. I lied a little. Julian looked unusually unsettled. The always docile cat seemed to have a temper for once. He pinched his brows, looking at me like I was a clueless kid. Are you mad because Ophelia accessed your computer? I gave her the password. I thought there was nothing important in there since you often leave things lying around at your brother's place. Yes, heading full cell wide sigh. It's true it's not as important as your computer. So important that as your fiancée I can't come within 3 steps of it. But Ophelia, as your friend's sister, even knows the password. Isn't it a coincidence that the password just happens to be her birthday? My sarcasm made Julian's face flush. It's not what you think. It's just a coincidence. I have no other intentions. Oh? But your little sister Ophelia is clearly determined to have you. Julian, Nandadalo sorry. Don't keep lying to yourself. Everyone except me believes you to belong together. Why can't you follow your heart and just say how you feel? Enough. You've been my fiancée since I was 18. That's a fact no one can change. I will urge my parents to set the wedding date. I'll personally oversee the venue and MC. Anything other brides have, you'll have at least as much. If not more. You'd better stay at the hotel and calm down. I'm leaving now. Julian, Letarvinen. You can give me everything except a truly loving heart. Your cowardice in love Rue and Ophelia's first half of life in the last life and also destroyed mine. I hope we never meet again in this life. Including the debts and children from the last life never again. Early in the morning, I got the plane ticket from Lena. We drank a little. Tipsy. And she hugged my head and cried like we were saying a final goodbye. I wiped my tears and went back to the hotel to sleep early. Only 4 days left before I leave. I thought I would be excited and sleepless. But I still couldn't resist the sleepiness brought on by the alcohol. I fell into a deep sleep. The next day, it was the double calls from Lena and my advisor that prevented me from missing the flight. After an 8-hour flight, I arrived at my destination. The person picking me up was a freckled white boy responsible for external affairs in the lab. To my surprise and delight, Dr. X himself met me. He didn't rush me into the project but sent me to rotate to various departments in the lab. I was like a sponge, constantly absorbing knowledge. I enjoyed the feeling. I was no longer anyone's wife or mother, nor a useless face. I learned voraciously, having fulfilled my obsession. Finally overcoming language barriers and getting along better with colleagues. My occasional creative ideas also contributed key points in some projects. Every time that happened, the little spirit inside me would dance. Before I knew it, I had spent a full 8 months in the lab. Except for checking in with Lena and my advisor when I first arrived, I completely cut off all other social contact. Coming out felt like a different world. A colleague from external affairs told me that a man calling himself Julian came looking for me. After waiting for a week, he left. Before leaving, he left an envelope. I was a bit surprised. When I got back to the dorm, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a set of keys. I remembered that no matter if it was me writing letters or making those handmade things, he always said I was old-fashioned. I never thought one day he would use this way too. In the letter, he said he didn't agree to cancel the engagement. I have been the fiancée he chose since high school. He has feelings for me. And Ophelia is really just his little sister. He said he has sorted out his thoughts and doesn't want to lose me. The keys are for a property in Country X that he bought for me, so I wouldn't have to suffer. He said the company plans to expand overseas, and he would try to come to Country X to be with me. You see, he always acts on his own, unilaterally taking care of everything for me, never asking if I'm willing. I thought running this far was enough to show my determination. So what is this from him? She runs. He chases. She can't escape? Even if he really is a domineering CEO. I am no longer a caged canary willing to be kept. Almost as soon as I arrived in Country X, I started working in the lab. The lab provides food and accommodation.